Are the sky-high house prices making you think if it is a good time to buy a house now, or should you wait a little for the market to cool down? If those are the questions you are asking yourself, then you are at the right place. Because today we are going to answer the question, is it a good idea to buy a house in such a hot market? Hello everyone, this is Ajinkya Patil and welcome to my channel. In this series, Buying a House in the Netherlands, I answer some of your most difficult questions about buying a house. If you are looking for answers to questions like how much should you pay for a house or how do you find the best neighborhood, then please subscribe to my channel. On this channel, every week I make a new video about buying a house in the Netherlands. Now let's get started with today's question. Is it a good idea to buy a house in such a hot market? The house prices in the Netherlands have reached their historical highs. Just this February, we have seen an annual growth of 10.4%, the biggest in almost 20 years. 1 year ago, when I was trying to buy a house, the high house values, the competition between the buyers, and the overbidding drove me completely crazy. It made me feel there was no way I could find a nice house for a reasonable price. Throughout that process, multiple times it made me think, should I buy a house now or should I wait for the prices to drop? Since then, the situation has only gotten worse. The house prices have accelerated upwards. So you might be asking the same question yourselves. Is it a good idea to buy a house now? In this video, I am going to give you 3 reasons why it is still a wise decision to buy a house in such a hot market. Reason number 1. The house prices might still go significantly up. Now, I don't have a crystal ball to look into the future and know what the housing market is going to do. However, what we can do is to understand the factors that are driving the high house valuations today. And understanding them might give us a sense of where the market is headed. There are two key factors that are driving the current high valuations of houses. The first one is the shortage of houses. There is currently a shortage of more than 300,000 houses in the Netherlands. So, this big shortage of houses is driving the house valuations higher. The question is, what is going to happen to this shortage of houses in the coming time? Now see, there are about 70,000 houses that are built in the Netherlands every year. Even if the demand of the houses stays the same, it's going to take about 5 years to meet the current shortage in the market. But actually the demand for houses is going up. So it is difficult to imagine that this big shortage of houses that is present in the market is suddenly going to disappear. For the coming time, we expect this shortage to remain, and that's why the prices are expected to still go up. The second factor that is driving the current high valuations of houses is the historically low interest rate. Low interest rates mean low monthly costs for mortgages for the same principal. What it means is that people might be willing to pay higher for the same house. Let me give you an example. Let's imagine a scenario a few years ago when the interest rates were about 2% for mortgages. Let's consider a house that was worth 258,000 euros for a 30-year-long linear mortgage that would result in a monthly cost of 1146 euros gross. Now fast forward to today, you can get mortgages with interest rates as low as 0.9%. What that would mean is that you can pay 325,000 euro for that house and still pay the same monthly costs. In other words, about 1% drop in interest rates could lead to more than 20% increase in house prices and still keep the monthly payments the same. From this example, it is easy to understand how the historic low interest rates today have also meant historic high house valuations. Now, why the interest rates are low and how they are going to evolve in the future is a topic for a separate video on its own. But in short, the ECB or the European Central Bank is keeping its interest rates low to maintain a healthy inflation. Also, it's providing stimulus so that economy recovers from the pandemic. Both of these actions are driving down the interest rates also for mortgages. In the coming time, with the recovery from the pandemic, we might expect some inflation and with that a little increase in interest rates. But again, it's very difficult to imagine the interest rates to suddenly rise. And as long as the interest rates are low, we expect the house prices will only go higher. The second reason you might still want to buy a house today rather than waiting is that you don't want to keep losing money on rent. Now, if you don't buy a house, you probably have to rent because you still need a roof over your head. Let's compare the cost of renting versus buying a house. Let's start with monthly costs of renting a house. The average rent in the Netherlands is 1150 euros. In addition to that, you also have to pay taxes for sewage and water sanitation. That comes to about 32 euros. In total, you pay about 1182 euros if you rent a house. Now let's compare that to buying a house. The costs of house ownership are much more complex, but let's give it a try. The average selling price of a house towards the end of 2020 was 325,000 euros. If you own such a house, you are paying about 1146 euros towards your mortgage. In addition to that, because you own the house and you're responsible for its maintenance, you might pay about 300 euros. You also need all kinds of insurances for a house. Let's consider about 90 euros monthly towards insurances. You also pay city tax and sewage tax and income tax. You also get some benefits because of tax deductions. So let's subtract those. And part of that monthly payments toward mortgage is actually building your own equity. So let's subtract that because it becomes your own asset. In total, in the end, you are paying about 744 euros per month if you own a house. So if you rent a house rather than buying, you are losing about 438 euro per month or 5,200 euro per year. That's about 2% of an average house price. In other words, the house prices must drop by about 2% in order to make it worth to wait one more year. You would lose about 5,000 euros a year if you were to rent a house rather than buying it. Therefore, not losing money on rent is the second reason it is still a good idea to buy a house in this hot market. The third and the final reason to still buy a house in this market is that if you buy a house now and hold it for a long term, the short cycles of ups and downs in the housing market don't really matter. As a long term trend, the house prices do appreciate. So that way you can ride out on the short term's ups and downs. If you are buying a house and want to know how much you should pay, then check out my other video on how to find market value of a house. If you like this video, then hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, press on the bell icon, and in the comments below, let me know if you have either suggestions or questions.